Continuing on here with the exhaust valves, I've flipped the head. We've already done this row of intake valves, and you can see how nice and uniform the seat looks here compared to these, which look quite frankly dirty. Now remember, when we took this off, these were in this position. So this is cylinder number 1, and even though this is on the right side, it's actually the left one, and this is the right one, because when we took them off, they were on this side, so it would have been over here, cylinder 1, left and right. So this is cylinder number 1, left and right, because we would have been facing this way. Bag number, cylinder 1, exhaust valve, left. So we'll take it out, have a look at it. If you remember this valve, again, the seat looks kind of oxidized, a little bit shiny, and the seat in here is again shiny as well. So we're going to put a new finish on these and reseat them so that they function properly. Remember, in the leak down test, it was the exhaust valves that were leaking the most. We're going to, so we clean it first, remove any residual glue. So I'm cleaning it with WD-40. Remove any residual glue from the tape. And that's nice and clean now. We need our paintbrush, which I have here in the bag. Our valve lapping compound. I'll take the brush, coat it with the valve lapping compound, and we'll begin to paint this valve seat. Make sure there's plenty of the compound. Now remember, these valves are in really good condition. So I'm not doing a great amount of lapping on them. I'm trying to keep them as close to stock in terms of the seat as possible. This engine doesn't have very many kilometers, so really we're just about reconditioning the seat so that it doesn't leak. So here I'm painting the valve. The easiest way to do that is just like this. You can set the valve down with the rubbing compound on it, and that'll remove any that's on the face. So now I need to oil the guide. Might as well oil this one while I'm there too. There's plenty of oil on the guide. And I need to put a little bit of oil on the valve. So I'll do that over here. The valve now has some oil on it, and it's going in the slot. So the valve's now in position. We need our plunger so that we can do this. So I'm going to go quiet now, and we're going to use this. I've rigged up a separate microphone. Hopefully you can hear the noise. The idea with this is you'll hear a grinding sound that should smooth out and go very quiet. That's what we're looking for. That quietness that you just heard, that's what we're aiming for. So take the valve out, give it a good clean, and then we inspect the surface to see if it's seated properly. Okay, so here's what we have. You can see now on the edge of the surface, there is a brown area and a silver ring. And that silver ring is just under 1 millimeter. It's about 1 millimeter in this area and a little less on this side. And that's the correct limit. And that is the new seat. So we'll check the seat in the cylinder head now and see how it looks. Sometimes you do need to do this more than once. And I think this is going to be one of those times. The cylinder head is just not clean enough. Let's see if I can get you a little closer. So we can see here that the surface of the valve seat, while it's duller, it still has a few imperfections on it and a little bit of carbon. So I'm going to do this again. We'll give this a second go. This can happen when you're dealing with this kind of situation where it's an older valve. Cylinder head is sat. This cylinder head sat for 30 years. It wasn't stored correctly. It was just basically kind of parked, as you saw with the carburetors. Now you don't want to rush this because we don't want to overdo it and make the seat too large, which would fall outside the manufacturer's limits and create problems for us in terms of longevity. So the idea is to just do it a little bit at a time. Make sure that you're within limits. It's easy to just do it a little bit at a time. Once you've made a mistake, you can't undo it with this thing. Then you're into reseating the valve, having to recut a new cylinder valve face, possibly a steel insert. It can get quite involved and quite expensive. There we go. So the valve is now painted again. Some oil on the valve. And it goes again. You're going to hear the same sort of grinding sound, and then it should smooth out. And there it has smoothed out again. So we'll use the plunger this time to remove the valve. Give it a clean. So now you can see on the valve, I've got a nice uniform seat. It's about 1 millimeter all the way around and a nice light silver color. So that's as much as I would want to do on that valve. I wouldn't want to do that anymore. I think that it would risk making the valve too large. So we'll clean this off. And I can see now that the valve seat in the cylinder head has a nice uniform silver color. It looks like it's as good as it's going to get. So we'll continue on. We'll do the next valve and moving forward. So we need to talk about the valve face limit. So the valve face limit wear, it says to visually inspect each valve for wear in its seating face. Replace any valves with an abnormally worn face. The thickness decreases as wear of the valve face advances. Measure the thickness, and if thickness found to have been reduced to a limit, replace it. So the service limit, which is in this little black ring right here. So this is the face from here to here. Then see this little tiny black ring? So as this valve wears down, it wears into this tiny black ring. And the service limit on that black ring is 0.5 of a millimeter. So we've got about a millimeter there right now. So we've got quite a bit of wear left. So it also gives a specification for the valve and seat condition and the seat width, which is this area here, from here to here. So you can see there's a smooth area, then a dull area, then the smooth area. And the dull area is the face. And I've just lapped this valve. So this standard area is 0.9 to 1 millimeter. So looking at this, it looks like it's about 1 millimeter in size. 1.1 millimeters is the standard seat width. So we can measure this. We can use this tool here. And 1 millimeter would be that space right there. Okay, so this is the contact area. It's not the actual size of the valve, so it's the contact area. So when I look at this valve, now that it's been seated, contact area, when I measure it, is right around 1 millimeter. So this valve, which has been lapped, you can see the slightly dull area is about 1 millimeter in size. So that is the contact area. We can also measure the seat width on the cylinder block. So we can, for instance, look at one of these seats and measure it there. So just to be clear, this area that you see here, from here to here, that is the area of the valve seat. It is not the area where the valve contacts. The actual area where the valve touches the seat is a smaller area, between 0.9 and 1.1 millimeters in size, according to the manual. So this particular seat here looks like it's around 2 millimeters in size, a little less, slightly less than 2 millimeters. And the area of contact of the valve would be less than this size. So when you're lapping the valve, you do not want to lap the valve to this size, because that would mean that you're outside the spec for the valve seat. So we have to be very careful lapping these valves. So we just put a little bit of a seating on them and get them smooth so that they'll seal properly. Don't want to overdo it and grind them, because the spec on this, the valve seat width spec, is 0.9 to 1.1 millimeters. And that's pretty small. That's a pretty small valve seat. So we need to be very careful with this. And when I look at the seat face in here, it looks good. So I think we're done there.